And it's time for Lefties Losing It. It's a fine time to have a look at the leftist mainstream media and work out just why trust in these institutions is at record lows. I wonder if CNN's Jake Tapper has any ideas on why Americans trust used car salesmen more than the media.
The FBI finally announced that they had arrested a suspect accused of planting pipe bombs near the Republican and Democratic National Committee headquarters the night before the January 6, 2021 Capitol attack. Brian Cole Jr., a 30-year-old white man from the D.C. suburbs, is charged with transporting an explosive device.
Say what now, Jake? A 30-year-old white man from the D.C. suburbs? That's what you said. Is this a white man, according to CNN? But then we shouldn't be surprised because CNN, including Jake Tapper, pushed the Fine People hoax against Donald Trump for 4 years, not to mention every other debunked hoax, including the Russian collusion hoax. Also on CNN, we had this woman, Ashley Allison, claiming this individual is some MAGA supporter and saying, we're all surprised he's not white.
I'm gonna say the thing out loud that I think everyone is not saying and is actually surprised, and why I think Janine Pirro is actually saying it. I think the fact that this is a black man is surprising to people. I think people thought this was going to be a white man that did this. They were going to be able to say he was a part of the progressive left. And the fact that it's a black man that is saying, I too was susceptible to conspiracy theorists that the president and conservative podcasts were pushing that this election was stolen is a fact that they were not expecting. And now everyone is on their heels and they're trying to spin it.
The only one spinning it is you, love, and your fellow political activists at CNN, including Abby Phillip, who even tried to push the notion that this alleged offending was no different to January 6 political prisoners, many of whom were guilty of nothing more than trespassing. Watch Isabel Brown school Abby on her own show.
I do wonder if he had been actually caught around the time of January 6th and prosecuted, would he have been included in Trump's pardons?
I mean, okay, this is absolutely beyond the pale to me, to be honest, to claim that we don't know any sort of inkling of a motive of this individual, when just a few months prior there was a lawsuit ruled in the Trump administration's favor against this particular individual for his company seeking to let illegal immigrants out of prison on bail bonds.
It's called a hypothetical, right? So it's called a hypothetical. Had he been prosecuted alongside all of those other people who were involved in violent acts on January 6th, would Donald Trump have pardoned him?
No, because individuals who walked into the Capitol building on January 6th were not planting pipe bombs.
What about? Oh, Abby, do better. But we shouldn't be surprised by Abby Phillip being a hard left activist. She did, after all, go on Joy Reid's podcast and agreed with pretty much everything Joyless had to say. And Joy is back spewing more venom. Listen to this.
And, you know, having been inside of a Republican National Convention and had that vibe from a senior citizen, someone's grandma, but whose glee was directed towards some of the most heinous ideas you could imagine, right? You know, sort of gleeful towards sort of returning to 1930s Germany, not even the United States. Like, I know that it's real. I actually think that what those people wanted and what Donald Trump is delivering is ethnic cleansing.
You know, that woman needs a padded cell and a straitjacket, not a microphone. Reminder, Joy is so loopy and hard left that even MSNBC sacked her. But for Abby Phillip, she's perfectly sound. And let's not forget, Abby Phillip also had this next shrieky charlatan on her program. Not only is Jennifer Welch uniquely awful and hate-filled, she's also a bald-faced liar.
Elon Musk, who I want to remind everybody that's against immigration, is a immigrant. I just think it's really important that we remind everybody all the time that Elon Musk is a immigrant that doesn't pay taxes, who is a parasite off the American taxpayer.
Oh dear, every American knows Elon Musk is an immigrant, Jennifer. But did you just claim that the man who provides hundreds of thousands of jobs and contributes tens of billions in salaries is a parasite? The man who went into space to rescue astronauts is a parasite. The man who spent over $40 billion to buy Twitter to help preserve free speech, it wasn't a business decision. He's a parasite? As for your lies about Elon not paying taxes, the truth is Not only does he pay tax, including personal income tax, but it's the most tax anyone has ever paid in the US, around $12 billion, and that was just in 2021. Now to ABC, and here we watch another anchor be embarrassed on his own show, this time by Eric Schmitt, Senator from Missouri, who points out why Democrat operative George Stephanopoulos, well, why his show is failing in the ratings.
It's been front page news across the country. Aren't you curious about that?
Well, I'm curious about your pushback on that particular point. With your previous guest, you had zero pushback because he's giving the Democrat talking points like you spew every single week, which is probably why your ratings are so bad.
Now, Minnesota Governor and failed vice presidential candidate Tim Walz is continuing to whine about President Trump calling him, and I quote, seriously retarded. He claims that people are now driving past his house, calling him that wants to boo word, and that may lead to violence.
I'd never seen this before. People driving by my house and using the R word in front of people. This is shameful. And I have yet to see an elected official, a Republican elected official, say, you're right, that's shameful. He should not say it. So look, I'm worried. We know how these things go. They start with taunts, they turn to violence. So deeply concerned.
This is the same inept governor who was wishing death on Donald Trump not too long ago. Does he think we've forgotten about that and that we've memory hold his comments likening a Trump rally at Madison Square Garden to a Nazi rally? Do you think that could have inspired violence, Tim Walz?
And I think some of you don't miss on this. Go do your Google on this. Donald Trump's got this big rally going at Madison Square Garden. There's a direct parallel to a big rally that happened in the mid-1930s at Madison Square Garden. And don't think that he doesn't know for 1 second exactly what they're doing there.
Joining me now is American Culture Project Senior Fellow Corey DeAngelis. Corey, if Tim Walz thinks he can play the victim after overseeing the mass fraud that has occurred in his state, then he's a bigger fool than we thought. What happened in Minnesota is utterly shameful.
Yeah, look, he's trying to deflect here. He's a total failure. He's a political failure. Speaking of violence, he was basically the death knell for the Kamala Harris campaign. They committed political suicide when they picked Tim Walz to be VP. I mean, he's a who thought he was going to mobilize the young male vote, for example? Tampon Tim. That's the perfect person to pick in order to get Trump into the White House. So good job, Kamala Harris campaign. But yeah, in Minnesota, they had $300 million that was supposed to go to kids to feed them during the COVID era, and it was fraudulently spent, apparently. So Tim Walz is obviously trying to deflect here. He's clutching his pearls. For him to do a press conference about this, and oh my goodness, Trump called me the R word. That only really upsets you if it has a little bit of a truth to it. So maybe he's admitting something personal about himself. But I think the real story here is that he's trying to deflect. He's clutching his pearls, trying to point at Trump and trying to whip up the base against his political opponents. But this responsibility falls on him. This happened under his watch with the fraud in his state. And look, he's a political failure. So hopefully people will forget about him sooner than later.
Well, the scale of the fraud is quite astonishing. They were talking about $1 billion. Now there's figures emerging of $3, $4, $5 billion. So at some point we'll get a clear picture of how much was just squandered there. Now, Corey, I want to ask you about my favourite story of the day. This is just, it's almost like a comedy sketch, this. This is the Soccer World Cup. We know it's going to be in North America in 2026. And naturally, the leftist city of Seattle wants to host a pride game to celebrate the LGBTQIA++ community. And let's see who FIFA scheduled for this game. Yes, it's Iran, where homosexuality is illegal and even carries the death sentence. And Iran was drawn to play against Egypt, another country where homosexuality is illegal and carries a prison term of up to 3 years. How did this happen, Corey?
I mean, it's beyond parody, right? That was a Daily Wire article that I read about this, but I thought it was a headline from the Babylon Bee. This can't be true, can it? But look, it really reminds me of the horseshoe theory of politics, where you had the far left loonies in Seattle basically siding with the far right, who might not be happy about countries like Iran and Egypt right now, kind of locking arms on this issue. But really, who kind of scheduled this? I don't know. They say that it was pre-scheduled and it kind of just turned out this way. It was a coincidence. It was either a big coincidence or the far left was really trying to piss off Iran and Egypt. But, maybe Iran and Egypt will pull out of the World Cup, but no one will miss them. It's not like they were going far anyway.
No, I don't think they're going to be pulling out of the World Cup. It's a pretty big deal. The Egyptian Football Association has already sent a formal letter to FIFA requesting this LGBTQIA plus pride match, a celebration at the World Cup, not go ahead, so they can just play a regular game without any of that political messaging. We'll see what happens there. Now, Corey, tell me about what else is happening in Washington State. There's female students there fighting for a ballot initiative to protect girls' sports, and there's also another initiative to strengthen parental rights after Washington State passed legislation that will remove the requirement for parents to receive notice when their children receive non-emergency medical services at school. That just seems incredible that your child could be receiving some sort of medical care. I don't know, perhaps some sort of hormones or puberty blockers, and the parents aren't advised. What's likely to happen in these cases?
Yeah, the lunatics at the teachers unions are trying to keep secrets from parents. And guess what? There's these two initiatives that are probably going to make it onto the ballot. It looks like they're going to have enough signatures to restore parental rights in education and protect girls' sports, keep boys out of girls' sports. These are 80-20 issues on the side of the Republicans. Let's see if they can get it done in a deep blue state controlled by Democrats and teachers unions in Washington. It'll be a very unique test case. But the teachers union, the Washington Education Association, is the main opponent of these two initiatives. They don't want to put it to the ballot. They know they're going to lose. So they're starting an initiative of themselves to stop people from signing the sheets in order to get it on the ballot in November of 2026. So there's events held right now by Let's Go Washington, the main group in favor of protecting girls' sports and parental rights in education. And there was a recent event where you had high school girls basically speaking out, saying there was a boy in my locker room. This didn't make any sense and it's unsafe. And so it's really a shame that the dads haven't really stepped up in stronger numbers. It's a shame that the girls themselves had to come out and say, you know what, adults shouldn't pressure young girls to undress in front of boys and men. I mean, this is just common sense stuff. But the liberal lunatics have gone so far off the deep end, and the teachers unions are dragging them down every step of the way. But hopefully parents will win this case in Washington, and it'll lay a blueprint for other blue states to go forward and do the right thing as well.
Now, before you go, Corey, I want to play you this exchange between Alex Bruesewitz and a journalist at the Doha Forum a few days ago. This was all about the stolen election narrative.
And Alex, no matter how many times you repeat that there was a rigged election, there is no evidence of that. But anyway, in my question...
You're very confident saying there is no evidence of a rigged election. Are you familiar with a guy named Hunter Biden? Well, if you're not familiar, he was Joe Biden's son. And he liked to have relations with prostitutes and film it and put it on a laptop. He liked to do crack cocaine and film it and put it on a laptop. And everybody in the legacy media, they said that is something called Russian disinformation. It wasn't Russian disinformation. That was a true laptop. Nobody in the media covered it. And if you posted about it on social media, you got censored and lost your account. And so after the election, it came out and they said, if you knew that laptop was real, would you have voted for Joe Biden? 20% of people who voted for Joe Biden said they wouldn't have done so. So if you're talking about just one aspect, that's called rigging an election.
Corey, that doesn't even begin to cover the money that they spent fortifying the election, as Time magazine put it. Tell me about this ongoing debate about the 2020 election and the many ways in which that election result was influenced.
Yeah, I like how that questioner at the Doha Forum was basically tried to slide that in there. There's no evidence of a rigged election. Then he tried to ask some other question. Good thing on Alex for calling him out and setting the record straight. I mean, look, the New York Post, I remember on Twitter at the time before Elon Musk was in charge and changed it over to X, you couldn't even post that New York Post article. It would just, it wouldn't allow you to do it. So that is interference in the election. And so, it goes so many layers deeper than that. But at the end of the day, I'm kind of happy that Trump didn't win the 2020 election, because now we have Trump 2.0. You only get 2 4-year terms here in America. And so I'm glad he's president right now. And he's, after all that's happened to him and the election being stolen from him in 2020, he's kind of gone, full throttle now. And I think we've gotten even more emboldened Trump than we would have beforehand.
I think you're right there. And you've got a far sounder administration. He's got much better people around him. I think one of the greatest mistakes of his first term was some of the judgment calls he made in the people he put in positions. And this time around, he seems to have everyone on the same team going in the one direction. Corey DeAngelis, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Hey, thanks, Rita. Good talking to you.
Joining me now is broadcaster Dee Dunleavy. Dee, let's talk about Melania Trump. They're finding new and increasingly desperate ways to attack the First Lady. She's even been criticised now online for reading to a group of young children without showing them the pictures. Dee, the First Lady was at the Children's National Hospital and read How Does Santa Go Down the Chimney to the children, but I don't know, some folk online were upset.
Yeah, upset and really nasty. I think one person described her as looking like she was dressed like a funeral director. Look, they snipe and snipe and snipe at Donald Trump, and it just flows off of him like off Teflon. And thankfully, the First Lady appears to have that same quality where she can just let it flow over her. She was doing something really sweet and kind. She was upholding a long-standing tradition, which is to go and read to the children at that hospital at Christmas time. And if I was one of the children in that room and I was given the choice of looking at a picture in a book and of looking at Melania Trump, I'd choose to look at Melania Trump. So I don't imagine the children were upset at all. And I applaud her. She genuinely cares about children. She did that beautiful visit to the Scouts with Princess Catherine when the Trumps were in the UK. She was at Quantico at a base, an Air Force base recently, looking after the children of military families and giving them presents as well. I don't think she would care at all about these online attacks.
No, I don't think. I think she has got that Donald Trump quality of just having absolute disdain for most of the media and the trolls online. Now, footage has circulated of France's First Lady, Brigitte Macron, using a slur against feminist activists who were interrupting the stand-up show of Aaron Abertana, who was wearing masks of the actor and shouting rapist at this performer. Abertana was accused of rape back in 2021, but the case was dropped in 2023. Interesting here, Dee, that Brigitte is reported to have said in French, of course, if there are any stupid bitches, we'll kick them out, using a vulgar expression in French. Well, this is quite a turn-up. I wasn't expecting this sort of work from Brigitte Macron.
Well, I am actually on her side in this, and it doesn't mean I'm in favour of sexual assault, nor does it mean that she is. I think what she's getting at is that she, like a lot of people, are probably sick of protesters interrupting shows where people have paid their money to see a performer perform. We saw it here in Australia when Jerry Seinfeld was performing in Melbourne. Protesters got up during his show and heckled him and had a go, and the crowd really did not have a taste for it. In fact, they booed the protesters out. So I think they do themselves a disservice when they bob up in these situations and put their interests in pushing their cause ahead of what's probably best for most of the people, and that is allowing them to enjoy the show that they paid to see.
Now, Meghan Markle is planning to reach out to her estranged dad, Thomas, a second time following his near-death experience. He had his leg amputated, Dee. She was hoping to get a letter to him as soon as she identified the hospital where he is recovering. Diddy, a source has told, source that's supposedly close to Meghan has told Page Six that she had been calling local hospitals to try to locate her father so that this letter could be delivered to him.
Yeah, well, I've called poppycock on most of this, and a letter, like what? Is she having it delivered by pigeon? This is just crazy. In this day and age, that this woman who holds herself up and is happy to be lauded as a founder and a great, successful, intelligent woman cannot get a message to her father. Well, it's probably close to a week now. I think it's unacceptable, and I feel really sorry for him. He seems to me to have been a very good and decent man. I think he did most of the heavy lifting when she was a young woman, raising her and taking her on set, and she's spoken about that in years past, about how she enjoyed going to work with her father. So there was a good relationship there. For whatever reason it has fallen apart, I think she's obviously the one that's holding out on him. He's desperate to see her, and she's, fumbling over ways to get in touch with him. It's not that hard in this day and age. I don't believe anything this woman says.
Well, yeah, he has been crying out to have some contact, and when he was gravely ill, he was essentially begging her to have one final meeting with him before he passed away. He's never met the grandchildren either. She seems to be estranged for her entire family other than her mother, which in itself I think is fairly unusual. Now, this next story, this captivated people for a few weeks. Pamela Anderson and Liam Neeson seem to be having a bit of a romance, and Pamela Anderson has opened up about this roller coaster romance with Liam Neeson. She told people that they were romantically involved for a short while after they finished filming a film together. And she said she still adores Neeson, but they are better as friends, Dee.
Darn it. I mean, I was like everyone else, and we were, to use an expression some people use, we're all getting ahead of our skis. We all wanted this to be the new romance. I mean, look, Liam Neeson lost his wife, Natasha Richardson, under really sad and tragic circumstances. She died after a skiing accident some years ago. So, we want him to be happy. And Pammy, I think she's really sweet, if not the sharpest tool in the shed. And I think was treated horribly by the media with her whole relationship with Tommy Lee and that sex tape that got released. So I think we're all hoping that this would work, but I don't think they're together. I think she's saying we're just good friends. There was maybe something hot and heavy, however hot and heavy you can get in your 60s and 70s. For a short time, but I don't think they're together.
I always thought it was a bit of a creation. It was a PR exercise. It just boosted interest in the film. It got so much publicity. I never sort of bought that it was genuine, but maybe I'm too cynical. Now, I want to get closer to home. You've uncovered some evidence that Coles is going woke. Well, they have been woke in recent years. Maybe they're staying woke. Let's look at this Coles Christmas book calling gingerbread men gingerbread people or gingerbread person. Didi, seriously, who is offended by the term gingerbread men? Because, I mean, this was a conscious decision. This wasn't just someone who forgot what these biscuits are called.
Well, Rita, I'm a woman and I'm deeply offended that I haven't been depicted as a biscuit with a bald head and stumpy legs and gumdrop buttons, which is probably a unisex outfit anyway. No, I don't think anyone was. Why are they doing this? Why are they correcting something that didn't need correcting? And it does matter because all of these instances where language is changed, where we refer to chest feeding and that someone is assigned sex at birth, all of these things that are not real, it kind of worms its way into our consciousness and becomes part of, that way of thinking, that woke way of thinking that I don't find acceptable. And whenever there is this sort of twisting of the English language to suit the woke agenda, I think that is harmful and I object to it.
Now, before you go, just want to get your take very quickly on Bonnie Blue, who is under arrest in Bali. And one of the people who reported her to the police in Bali has told News.com how and why they did it. The OnlyFans model, well, again, she's not really on OnlyFans anymore. She is a online sex worker. I think OnlyFans dumped her, but she's facing up to 15 years in jail, probably more likely to be deported. She was arrested on suspicion of breaching Indonesia's anti-pornography laws, and the individual who reported her said that the cops at first couldn't even understand what was happening. We had to explain it to them. They just couldn't comprehend it. Dee, thankfully for you, you've only got about 15 seconds. What should happen to Bonnie Blue?
Well, I think if you're in a country, you abide by its customs, and I absolutely back the Balinese people who are very spiritual, who don't want to get a reputation like Thailand or the Philippines as a dirty sex, whatever pit, whatever it is she's trying to convey with her antics. I think she deserves to be punished.
Dee Dunleavy, thank you so much for your time.